Welcome to the Monday Monologue. Well, first I want to show you some of the cool stuff that's come in this week, and some of this just came in this morning. The chassis for the KT120 monoblocks are here. A pair of these guys. Man, they are beautiful. Got like oak sides on both sides. It's got a nice thick aluminum top. The bottom's kind of textured aluminum, and I'm going to send this off and get some ventilation slots milled in the bottom of it to make that all nice and pretty too. This is too nice just to like drill a bunch of holes in it for ventilation. And then there's what the front of it looks like, and I think these are going to look awesome. And for right now, my plan is to not put volume controls on these guys and just have like an on-off switch and then have my Skookie design. I might even see about getting that engraved into the front of it instead of having a sticker on it, and try to make some really high-end looking stuff out of this deal, since we have some pretty high-end parts going in it, and make some super nice monoblocks. Put one RCA jack in the back, a couple of speaker connections, and the power connector, and go ahead with the more traditional rear-mounted stuff. I know in the past I've made a case for putting the RCA jacks near the front. Let me hear from you guys. Would you rather see them in the back in the more traditional place, or maybe put them in the top right next to the input tube to have a really short signal path? Which, man, there's a part of me that wants to do that, and I don't think that would detract from their appearance. And you could always use like a right angle connector on the end of the cable and just have it run around like this, instead of the signal cable running through the inside of the amp where there's going to be more noise. So put in the comments what you'd like to see me do with the input jack on these things. Next, speakers. I really want to try to get into more DIY speaker stuff, and I really want to experiment too with full range speakers. I love the idea of no crossovers, trying to design the cabinet to enhance the bass response. And for me personally, with my hearing, I'm not hearing much over 10K anyway, and so speakers in hi-fi gear that work from 40 hertz to 10K is perfectly fine. I think a full range speaker should be able to handle that. Somebody sent me a link to these things. These are some Lisong, Liisong. I'll put a link below. These are Fast 6 full range speakers. And they've got an aluminum basket. They've got a really monster magnet on the back of them. These look like really high quality speakers. Don't know what they sound like, but I've heard good reviews of them. They also have plans for building a cabinet for this size speaker, and the cabinet looks like this, with a horizontal bass port across the front with some baffling inside to, I assume, accentuate the bass a little bit, and then looks like a really well designed out thing that's going to be just a tad bigger than my RP600Ms. I definitely want bookshelf size speakers for my system. Floor speakers just don't really work in my space. So I think these are going to be something really cool. We're probably going to be doing an on-location video with my friend Bob, who has a woodworking shop that's going to build the cabinets for me. I went over to talk to him. I bought some birch plywood, some 3/4 inch stuff over at Lowe's, and took it over to his house. And he was looking at the stuff, and he was like, well, do you want to dado and rabbit this stuff? And do you want to do different joinery? And this wood probably has some voids in it. I got some nicer stuff. And he got all excited about the project. So he's basically going to build these as part of his hobby, as woodworking. And then I can combine it with my hobby of hi-fi stuff. And so we'll go over there for probably not sawing all the wood up, but more of a, here's an assembly of the pieces that he's cut up, showing, maybe the pro way of doing it, and then maybe a simpler way of building these cabinets without the fancy edge joining and stuff that he's probably going to do. And he wants to face frame it, and we'll go over all that when we get into that. Also, and I don't know how this happened, I ordered this, and then I ordered this little 3-inch guy that we'll get to in a minute. And in the box of that 3-inch guy came a pair of these. Now, these are some cheaper ones. They're still the Lisong Li Audio speakers. This one's called an F6, and it's got, a stamped steel basket like your, lower end speakers usually have. Still got a pretty nice sized magnet, and the cabinets actually have this model number on it, not this one. But it looks like these are very similar in size, so I think I could design these cabinets and then try this speaker and then this speaker in the same cabinet. And that's the cool thing about a full range speaker too, is there's no crossover or anything, so you can just swap out drivers into the same cabinet and compare them, kind of like you do tube swapping, you're just driver swapping. And so I think that'll be fun to compare these two different drivers. I'm not sure if they still make this one or not. I think this was the replacement for this. That's got it's a little higher end thing. The center of this doesn't move, and the cone and everything kind of moves around it. So I think this has probably got a bigger voice coil. And this one's just got, your plain flat bottom little wizard cone. And anyway, I thought that was interesting, and I'm not going to complain that somebody kind of screwed up and threw these in the order too. Maybe I did put a link to my YouTube channel in the email, so they may have said, hey, she's probably going to be reviewing these on YouTube. Let's send her a couple of more speakers to play with, which, hey, let's get on with that, right? The other thing is these look intriguing. These are little 3-inch drivers and frickin' magnets the size of the cone. I mean, these are some serious looking little drivers. They're 4 ohms, so not going to be real tube friendly, but I'm thinking about coming up with a little cabinet for these things and putting a Class D solid state amplifier at each one to make a couple of little powered speakers that you could use with your computer, and maybe upgrade the computer speakers that I use, for gaming and stuff. So this looked like a fun project too. And so gotta do some research if anybody has some ideas for cabinets for little desktop speakers like this. These are downsized from bookshelf. So these are little desktop guys. And maybe even some links to some possible good Class D little amplifiers that I could use with these drivers that'll drive a 4 ohm speaker. That would be fun too. And so kind of venture off into more of a solid state kind of a build on a speaker thing that I think will be fun too. So I think you've seen the video about the preamp. That should roll along pretty quickly. Also about to release a video on the little Musisair X7 KT88 tube amp of a repair, review, modify on that deal. So that's kind of what's the order of that we're going to be doing things is we're probably going to be doing this Musisair X7 and that preamp together. Then depending on how the cabinet guy goes, it might take him a couple of weeks to get these cabinets done, and maybe longer. I don't know. I told him I'm not going to tell you how to do it. Just make it this size with this shape and do it however fancy you want to do it. So that might take a little while. And then we got our KT120 monoblocks, which I've already kind of laid out everything. I think this is going to be super cool. And again, leave in the comments where you think I should put the input RCA jack. Either on the top up here next to the tube, or should I just put it kind of hidden in the back like you would normally see so it would have a really clean look? Because I'm really going for just a clean look. Like I said, no volume controls. We're going to put that on either just a separate volume control little box that's a passive one, or it could be driven by some preamps, maybe in that cool color preamp if that thing turns out nice. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at project-wise, and I just wanted to share you some of this cool parts. I'm really excited about these full-range speakers. I think having something to listen to besides the RP600Ms and those DIY 2.2, which were both two-way speakers, see what this full-range thing's about with no crossover between the amp and the actual driver. might be gold. I don't know. People sure seem to, rave about these open baffle speakers, and this is kind of a cross between going in that direction, because I don't really have the room in my house to put the big open baffle thing. So I think this is a good way to experiment with full range speakers. So the last thing I want to touch on is, what is HiFi? And a lot of people have different opinions on what HiFi is. And to me, it's a system that doesn't add distracting things to the audio so that you can enjoy it. And what I would call lo-fi is if you have static in your system, or you've got a loud hum, or you're playing dirty vinyl that's just clicking and popping like crazy. That's the kind of things that are distracting to me. Some people really got really hostile about this color preamp, and I had a couple of really super nasty comments that I decided, one of the guys, I just blocked him from the channel because he was getting so abusive. But to say that something's not HiFi because it doesn't have 0.0001% distortion with a dead flat frequency response, that's just not real. And a good example of this is, I just got a new head unit for my car stereo, and it's got this button with a little control thing on the screen that's called surround delay or something. And clearly that is not like traditional HiFi, where it's like total non-manipulation of the signal. They're putting a sound delay of certain frequencies on each speaker that you can adjust each one. And then you can also add like, a fake horn speaker sound from the back and adjust the level of it. And, at first I thought, this is stupid. This is just a gimmick. This is going to sound like garbage. I'm now using it. It sounds great. I mean, it really makes the cabin of the car seem much larger than it is, and it makes the speakers sound like they're further away from you than they are, to the point that you don't really hear the speakers anymore like you would listening in a big room. And that's total manipulation, not realistic of what's actually been recorded, but it sounds better. And the same thing like with this color preamp. If it makes it sound better to the listener, I don't care what the distortion numbers are. As long as the distortion isn't annoying or noticeable where you're hearing the distortion and not the music. So another example was this Spud amp that I just built. I could have got the distortion down right at 1%, but it didn't sound as good as it did when I put the LED and resistor back in it that added like another 0.5% of distortion. It just sounded better like that. And I'm not going to build stuff or tell you to build stuff based completely on the numbers that come out of the audio analyzer suite if it also doesn't sound better. And to me, that's what HiFi means, is a good sounding system. So that's my rant for the week. So anyway, hope you're enjoying my channel. Hope you're enjoying this content. If you are, please subscribe. Also, thank you, Patreon folks. You guys are the ones that help me afford to be able to build these projects. And just like I promised, I'm going to be putting some of these projects that I've built for sale on my Patreon, and you guys are the ones that are going to get to buy the stuff. And so I think that's a good way of kind of, making sure that my projects go to true DIY HiFiers that aren't going to like stick their finger inside the amp and electrocute themselves, or at least I hope not. So also, thank you for folks that have donated to my website. That helps me buy these things like these speakers and stuff, because guys, I don't really need this stuff, and I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the channel and to make this stuff for you guys. And so, thank you for helping support me and the channel in bringing you these cool projects. And also, thanks to you folks that are sending me gear to repair and rebuild or modify or whatever to use for channel content. I appreciate that too. If you have something you'd like to send to me, contact me via my website and see if it looks like something interesting for the channel, and maybe put it in the queue and you can see your stuff here on Skunky Designs. So anyway, hopefully we will see you next week for the Monday Monologue.